Welcome to the Roto Joe's Fantasy Football Podcast. Tonight, let's go ahead and start off. It is officially short clip season. Treylon Burks, is he overweight? Is he the wide receiver Eddie Lacy? We may not know for a few years, but he couldn't finish his first couple OTAs due to asthma. On to something a little more meaningful and actual. Deshaun Watson's suspension is going to get announced in June. What do you think that length's going to be?
Man, I at this point, I've heard ramblings. Everybody has an opinion, and none of them's Roger Goodell at the moment, so it's kind of hard to take. Personally, I'd be surprised at anything less than a year. Anything, I mean, he's not going. I don't think he'll hit the field this year. I think here's what I think. I think it'll be a year. I think he appeals it, and maybe it gets taken to 14, 10 games, 12 games, somewhere in that range. I mean, it's going to be the better part of a year, and it's going to put the Browns in a situation where they're going to try to start Baker Mayfield, who's not going to show up, and then they're going to move to Jacoby Brissett, which...
Hey, that's not bad. Is Jacoby better in that offense than Baker? And that's the question, right? Like, I see an avenue where he is, and I see an avenue where he's not.
Yeah, I think he could be. That offense is just not meant for a Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield, once he gets cut loose and he goes somewhere, he could have a successful NFL career. He just was dealt a bad hand. I don't think he's going to be an all-pro by any means, but he could have, a great value Kirk Cousins type of career. That's the way I see it. I think a lot. I'm like, I mean, now that Pickett's there, that's not going to be a conversation. But I kept thinking, what if he goes to Pittsburgh? What if they waive him? He goes to Pittsburgh. He could be the next 15 years of Big Ben. Not great, but also not terrible.
Yeah, I'm curious about what happens to Baker. I don't think he plays for the Browns again. The Deshaun thing, I know at one point I thought it was going to be 6 games. I think after HBO aired all the women not all the women, but some of the women talking about it, Roger Goodell works off the court of public opinion, and that's not looking too good for Deshaun White right now. I think you're right. It's going to be like 14 games. That's going to shit all over a lot of people's teams who drafted in like last month, this month. All the people who feel like they're like fantasy tryhards like to draft 7 months before the fucking season starts. They'll draft for 2022 in like November 2020. And then they act surprised when it kind of gets fucked up. And I get why it's fun to do it early, but I mean, at the earliest, like July. Too much happens before then.
I have like a hard Saturday, Sunday before the season starts.
Some people would call us normies for that.
Well, and even then I've gotten burned on that shit. So, it's hard to do it. I mean, rookie drafts, in my opinion, they are what they are. Mm-hmm. You're not drafting a guy. Hopefully you're not drafting a guy in your rookie draft that's going to make or break your season. You shouldn't be. Unless you have the 101 and you did like Garrett did where you sold your whole team for a bunch of picks. But, yeah, I mean, to me, like, I don't care. Like, I took Jameson Williams in the first round. I know that fucking guy just tore his ACL. That's fine. That's fine. But, yeah, full scale redraft, keeper leagues, you gotta go as close as you can to the season. It's
especially for money, especially when you're paying a decent amount of money. You don't want to get fucked on something. You don't have a lot of control over fantasy anyways, but I want to make sure my drafted rosters is like right as it's going to be.
As right as it can be, at least at that moment.
So, next up. Sorry, I blew into the mic. I had a spider walking up on me. I wasn't trying to blow into the mic on you. So, next up, Brian DeBall making some moves out in New York. He said he is going to let Daniel Jones cut it loose. Can Daniel Jones cut it loose? He also says Saquon's going to catch a lot of passes. The Saquon plays 7 games this year.
That's a lot. Here's my thing. We are at a breaking point with Saquon Barkley, are we not?
Mm-hmm.
I think one more injury-plagued year, one more unperforming year, we've got to get him out of that top conversation. We know he has the skill set to be great. We know we've seen it. Now, if the ball can't get the best out of Saquon, we've got to move on. As a fantasy community, we've all got to let that flame die. Just like, I mean, you remember Trent Richardson some years ago? He had that one great season. We tried to ride that fucker for 4 or 5 years. Eddie Lacy had a good year or two. We tried to cling on to that for way too long. We've got to, as a fantasy community, we've got to learn when to cut it. And my personal opinion is, I don't care who the quarterback is. If Saquon can't go in this year and have an RB1 year, we've got to stop painting that picture that he is.
Yeah, I think CMC kind of falls in that area too. Maybe a little differently. His is more injury. Well, Saquon's is injury based too. Last year, Saquon played like shit though. And quite honestly, we haven't seen McCaffrey ever play that bad. He's going out there and scoring 13 fantasy points in a bad game.
Right, but here's what the Giants did. They got a great head coach. They retooled the coach. They went and got some offensive linemen. I mean, they're giving him all the tools he needs to succeed, minus Daniel Jones, right? I mean, Daniel Jones is flat out going to be a career backup after this year if he doesn't have a Josh Allen type season. It's a wrap on Daniel Jones. In my opinion, it should have already been a wrap on Daniel Jones. But if anybody can fix him, it's the ball.
Another little nugget. Bears to feature the outside zone. This is a Khalil Herbert statement. I don't think that David Montgomery is going to be what David Montgomery was the last 2 years. Slow plotter. He's reliable. But I think I think that we're going to see a lot of Khalil Herbert. I think it's going to be not 50-50, probably like 60-40, 65-35-ish. But that hurts Monty a lot because I had a lot of Monty when he was RB like 4 in 2020. He was only RB4 because he carried the ball 20 times and caught 10 passes.
Well,
volume based.
I remember that year because it was the same week that you traded for him. I was sitting there and I start looking at playoff schedule.
Yes, he has the best playoff schedule ever.
Fucking cakewalk. And I was like, okay, he's not that good. Should I pull the trigger? I open up the app. There you are. Already had pulled the trigger. And I'm like, oh, well, fuck me, right? I'm like, well, okay.
File that under Know Your League Mates. If you see a guy who has a crazy playoff schedule 4 weeks before the playoffs, you go make a move for him.
Yeah, no, and depending on how much your league makes, you might need to start looking at that playoff schedule about week 3. But yeah, that was it. I remember I had 2 guys. It was Jonathan Taylor in his rookie year and David Montgomery. I don't remember if he was a rookie, but those 2 just had the fucking easiest schedule. And I go, and you had already did both. And I'm like, you motherfucker. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to ride it out because I don't really have a better option.
The Jonathan Taylor thing was funny. We're totally getting sidetracked. Definitely okay. We have a lot of time. Jonathan, I drafted him in like the 5th round. Now, I had been doing this was before we started doing this. I hadn't even begun to hit the point in which I felt like I could talk about it in a way that's meaningful. So I was just doing Fantasy Pros mock drafts. Wasn't even on Sleeper yet. And Jonathan Taylor always got picked in like the fucking 2nd round, early 3rd round in those mock drafts. And we go to our draft, it's like the end of the 5th round, and he's still there. I was like, oh, these fucking guys are stupid. Now, it didn't turn out as well as I liked until the end of the year, but that boy nice.
I got so much fucking Jonathan Taylor in my leagues. I got all of it.
He's due for a big injury.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So,
back injury from carrying the fucking team.
Before we get to the beginning of our redraft stuff, well, I think we've gone over a little bit before, but moving on from rookie drafts, let's have a little bit of a look back. We'll probably give some nuggets, talk about guys you might want to potentially trade out of, trade into. But we're going to redraft the first 18 picks, so up until the 206 of your 2021 rookie drafts. It's going to be a snake draft, a la what Bill Simmons does a lot with his guests. Kaden will have the first pick. I'll go second, third. We'll proceed like that until we hit 18. Kaden, you're at the 101. Who's your pick?
For me, it's got to be Ja'Marr Chase, without question. And here's why. I love Najee. I love Kyle Pitts. Those are the unanimous 1, 2, 3 for me. But here's what I got. Ja'Marr Chase over Najee just because of longevity. I see Ja'Marr Chase. He came on and did what? Not a lot. I mean, here's the truth. You take a rookie receiver, you really don't expect a whole lot year one. He was the wide receiver 5 last year overall in PPR. And I feel like that kind of start, he's going to have his boy for a long time. He's not going anywhere. Wide receivers last a lot longer than running backs, and that's the only reason I make that call. Wide receiver 5 in your rookie year, he's due for some regression, sure, but he's super uber talented. And it's really funny because you remember last year the reports out of training camp is that guy couldn't catch a fucking cold, right? And and honestly, in our dynasty rookie draft, I was at 7 and he got picked at 6, and I was fully ready to take him at 7, and Kyle Pitts fell to 7, and that's where I was at. So the decision was made for me, but I was ready to take Ja'Marr Chase. And then, honestly, the reports came out after that. I probably would have panicked and fucking sold. And I would have kicked myself in the dick for that.
We have a league mate who dropped him for Tyler Boyd in a redraft league. Day before the season. All righty. 102, I'm going Kyle Pitts. We're going to talk about Pitts as a potential bust. I hate to use the word bust, but overdrafted would be a better word later on. But long-term in dynasty leagues, Kyle Pitts is probably the tight end 1 in dynasty for me. Kelsey's old, Andrew's old, Kittle gets hurt a lot. Pitts is tight end.
Andrews is still in his 20s.
Yeah, but he blocks. Like Kittle. Kelsey doesn't block, so 32 is like 29. No, he doesn't. Like, I know it's funny, but he really doesn't block. He doesn't line up in line.
Yeah,
Pitts doesn't either, so Pitts is going to play for 15, 16 years. But Kyle Pitts is essentially a receiver. Him finishing at tight end 11 last year is so impressive because, look, tight ends don't finish high. They're first, and really until their second contract usually. And this is a guy who went out there, put up 1,000 yards. If he had better luck in the end zone in the touchdown department, he's probably a top 7 tight end. All the tools are there. Mariota hurts him this year, but let's be honest, that's probably going to be a 1-year thing. So you can't hold that against him in dynasty leagues and redraft, sure. But overall, yeah, Pitts, he might be the 101 in this draft in 5 years.
Absolutely. But and it's just, honestly, you got to go for positional value. That guy, I mean, that talent at tight end is about as close to a unicorn as you can find. There's going to be more Ja'Marr Chases. There's going to be more Najee Harrises coming out in the next 3 to 4 years. There may not be another Kyle Pitts for 10 years,
No, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch him progress. 103.
If he can score 5 to 10 touchdowns this year, And Mariota can't sling it deep. So that's my thought I mean, I know we're gonna dig into Kyle Pitts later, but that's my thought is yeah, we can have this conversation all day, but yeah, I'm good on that one.
103, and this is a little bit of a curveball, Trevor Lawrence. I'm really high on Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, he had a really shitty situation last year. He had no run game, really. James Robinson's an okay running back, but the way that offense was getting called, the running game wasn't that good. No line. After Chark got hurt, no real high-level wide receivers. No one who wasn't a third wide receiver on the depth chart originally. And he still did he put up good numbers? No, but he had his games where he looked good. I remember we talked about it last year, and watching him, there were 3 or 4 throws he'd make every game where you saw it. Like, you saw what was there. This year, say what you want about Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Etienne's back, but say what you want about those two, Ingram and Kirk, they're better. Kirk's a legit wide receiver 2 in the league, so that's an upgrade. Evan Ingram was a good tight end until
best wide receiver in the league, but he is a wide receiver.
Yeah, Ingram's going to be used well. Etienne's an upgrade over Robinson. Obviously, Doug Peterson is infinitely better than Urban Meyer. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a good year this year, and I don't think he's necessarily what we hyped him up to be. He might not be Peyton Manning, but he's going to be a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the league for a lot of years.
I think he's closer to Peyton Manning than he is to Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I agree. That's where I'm at with it too. Yeah, he's better than.
He's going to be he's a generational talent who's always going to be in a bad situation. I kind of see him as Matt Stafford in Detroit.
Yeah.
He's uber talented. He's going to be better than he should be given what he was given, but he's still not going to reach that top echelon until, I don't know, he gets traded in his 13th, 14th year, whatever. I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan. Finishing at quarterback 22, given the cards he was dealt in his rookie year, I like it. I'm buying it.
104, 105.
So for me, I'm gonna go obviously Najee Harris at 104. Yeah, he did. Here's my thought on Najee. He's a little bit older than he should be at the point he's at. His value increased or decreased with Kenny Pickett. Because my thought on Kenny Pickett is he is probably as close to skill set wise Big Ben as you could find in that draft. And they went and found it. Almost, old Big Ben, young Kenny Pickett, I almost see it as a wash. I don't think he's going to be able to. I think he's going to lose some targets this year just because they add George Pickens, they add Calvin Austin. Freiermuth's just getting better. He's a guy I like a lot. Yeah, so I think he's due for a step back, but he's still, a top 6 running back in the league. He's not going to have the season he had, but that's kind of where I value him right now. 105, and I did my rankings assuming this was a super flex league. I'm going to go with Mac. I like Mac Jones as a very long-term, above-average guy. I don't think he's Tom Brady. I don't think he's even close.
He's Matt Ryan. He's maybe Matt Ryan.
He's Ryan.
He's Matt Ryan post Kyle Shanahan, if we want to get really specific.
Yeah.
I'm a Patriots fan.
I
There's
do
a flag in the back.
So, PPR, he was a quarterback 18 on the year. So you're middle of the pack, just solid guy. He's the most excellent guy you could have at that third quarterback position, especially in Superflex. And I think he has upside to do a little bit better. We'll see. This year, jury's still kind of out for me. It could go either way. You know, McDaniel's moving on. I don't even know who they hired to replace him. Um, he's just a guy that I feel like has a very high floor. And you know, super flex leagues, if you're taking a guy where you can say, okay, that'll at worst be my third quarterback for the next 12 to 15 years, that's okay.
Yeah, I like Mac more than the other quarterbacks left. I'm not. I get on Patriots Twitter and I see people fucking try to claim he's like, oh, he Pro Bowler first year, better than Tom Brady. It's you guys are dumb. Not at all.
You got,
But you know, if we're really lucky, he's Matt Ryan, like peak Matt Ryan. So
and here's the deal: is you don't have to have a $50 million a year quarterback on the roster to win a. You really don't.
Most teams that have one don't. You usually have to have one on a cheaper contract.
And that's when a lot of teams will, because once you denote 30 to 40% of your cap to one dude, the rest of the roster tends to turn out like shit.
Yeah. All right, 106, 107. 106 is Javonte Williams. If I'm being really honest, he's going to enter next year on his age 23 season. If I'm not, it might be age 24. I'm really certain it's 23. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm really sure it's 23. So he'll enter next year at his age 23 season. Melvin Gordon's not going to be back another year. He's 30. It's eventually going to be Javonte's season. I understand everyone thinks it's going to be 50-50 this year. I think it's going to be probably 60-40. 55-45. I do think Javonte gets more work. That's been the reports out of the Broncos camp. With Melvin Gordon on the roster, he's a probably high-end RB2. He has pass game upside. I think he's going to get more goal line work this year. The thing bringing over Nathaniel Hackett from the Packers is they put their running backs in really conducive situations based off their skill set. And I think they're going to use Javonte in a very unique pounder role that also plays on all the third downs because Melvin can't do that. I think Melvin's going to be like a change of pace early down back. So that bodes well for fantasy value, like the age. 107, Travis Etienne. I think that Etienne I don't think he's ever going to be an elite RB1. I don't think he ever will be like RB1 potential, but I think he's going to have a lot of high-end RB2 seasons in his career, and he might have one season where he pops off. So especially in like a dynasty league, really strong hold. I think he's a little older than Javonte. He's not as old as Najee, and with RBs that does matter. And there's a Liz Frank injury, worried about that. But assuming he comes back fine, all reports are good, he's going to be, like I said, a high-end RB2 for a lot of years.
I have to agree with that. I think his pass catching upside matched with his rapport with Lawrence is going to do him a lot of good, especially in the next 2 to 3 years. Because I think we're going to see a whole fucking lot of ETN in the next, especially probably 6 games or so until James Robinson comes back. Because let's just be honest, like.
Time out. James Robinson tore his Achilles. I don't think he's playing this year. And if he does play this year, I don't think he's playing a lot.
And it would be wise for them not to. But
so I think Etienne's going to get a lot of work past that.
Yeah, I agree with
Just want to throw that in there.
I think it's Etienne season. I think, high-end RB2 is kind of where I'm sitting with him right now. And I think a lot of that has to do with the pass catching. Is that's what he does well. We all know it. There's some good reports out of camp that he's a full fucking fiend at this point. He's kind of a guy. I didn't put him in my overvalued that we'll talk about later, but it could potentially be that way for a lot of people. He's one of those guys on Twitter that's just getting blasted to the moon. He's definitely not going to be the first or second running back I take, but he's definitely up in that range. Javonte Williams, yeah, I mean, we all know Javonte is going to be that dude sooner or later. I know you were as heartbroken as anybody when Melvin Gordon got re-signed.
So I was until I made some moves. Now I don't care. He's my 4th running back, dude. Not a big deal. And I have Melvin on that roster.
So we'll go into the 108 for me. I'm going to have to go Jalen Waddle. And it's just because I like a whole lot of Jalen Waddle. He is, prior to the Tyreek Hill trade, he was one of those guys I wanted all the Jalen Waddle I could get. Tyreek Hill kind of hampers that, but here's my theory on this. I don't think Tyreek Hill is going to perform at a high level for much longer. I feel like 1 season to 2, and then he starts taking a step back. He's not going to be the fastest dude on the football field much longer. I mean, you got to realize he had 6 seasons where Kansas City rode the dog shit out of him. And that's kind of my thought, is they have him. He's kind of a bridge. Jalen Waddle will do very well in that wide receiver 2 role. And you got to think about this. Devontae Parker moved on. Who the fuck else is on the roster? Cedric Wilson? I mean, is that really a guy that we're super?
That's a slot receiver.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thought. I like Jalen Waddle as, in my opinion, the 2nd best receiver out of that class. Going on to the one, what would that be?
109.
109. You went down my list. You fucked me up. I'm going to have to go with another receiver and go Devontae Smith. Here's what I know. So we're talking about a guy that was a wide receiver 30 on the season. Don't love the addition of A.J. Brown for his value, but I think it's honestly what he needs to perform at a higher level. Still not sold on Jalen Hurts being that guy. Like we've talked about before, Jalen Hurts is much better of a fantasy quarterback than he is a real life quarterback. But I think because here's the deal. Last year, Devontae Smith went out. Everybody fucking knew that was the only receiver they had that was worth a shit. And now you add in A.J. Brown. I think he takes a lot of that coverage away. He takes the high safety away, and Devontae Smith can kind of work out of that, that slot role. And I think he's one of those guys that, he has a Cooper Kupp type of potential in that wiggly little fucking scrawny guy running across the middle shit. Like, I'm still a Devontae Smith believer, so therefore that's what I have to say about
that. Yeah, I think there's a tier break after that, is how I'll put it.
Oh yeah, there's a nasty drop off. We're going into fantasy.
We're going into little explanation because you don't really want it. Zach Wilson's my 110. Picking this guy out of the 3 quarterbacks left just because his team is the team that supported him the best. The other 2 guys kind of got shit on. Well, Trey Lance would be my next pick, and I guess we'll just talk about that real quick. We're about to talk about him here in a minute. He is supported. I'm not sold on the talent. However, if he hits, he's going to hit. And that's the deal with him. He's either going to be Patrick Mahomes or he's going to be Jordan Love. And there's no in between. And more guys like that end up Jordan Love than Patrick Mahomes.
Correct. And I don't love his coaching situation.
I don't think, no. So, I have nothing past that. 112 and 201.
So what'd you go at 111?
Lance. I went Wilson and Lance.
So for me, 112, I'd go Justin Fields just for the pure upside. I mean, crazy athlete, and he is about as much of a dart throw as you can get. I still truthfully believe, I said this last year, in the right situation, he would be the quarterback one fantasy wise in this draft. He just offered so much more of an upside than the other guys. He was not supported worth a fuck. I mean, they lost Allen Robinson and added some guy whose name I don't even know. I mean, Darnell Mooney is the wide receiver one on that team, and I don't think he is a wide receiver one.
Don't sleep on Velus Jones.
What's his name?
Velus Jones Jr. He's a 25-year-old rookie.
Oh, cool. So he did some years at community college, huh?
Yeah. And
so that's my 112. My 113. I'm gonna go with Freiermuth, and here's why I like Freiermuth. Freiermuth, to me, out of this draft class, it was all Kyle Pitts talk, right? And Freiermuth kind of slipped under the radar. He slipped down to the Steelers, and just the way that guy plays, without question, Pat Freiermuth would have been the tight end one in this class. No conversation. Trey Burke, Trey McBride. We're not worried about him. For me, Pat Freiermuth, he's a late round fucking target, and everybody needs to remember the name because we've talked about it before. You got your top 3 to 5 guys, and then there's a huge dump off. And if you're looking for a later round tight end, I think I heard that Pat Freiermuth is going as the tight end 11 off the board. I'm eating that up. I mean, I'm just absolutely eating that up because what's going to happen in Pittsburgh? Diontae is probably going to hold out for a contract. I hope they don't give it to him because he is not worth it. I've talked a lot about my pure disgust for Diontae Johnson. He is about as inefficient as it gets. Some of the most drop passes in the league. I mean, just air yards aren't right. There's a whole lot of reasons not to like Diontae Johnson. He's purely a volume-based guy. I hope they don't pay him, but then they got sorry, I just lost my train of thought. They got Claypool. He's hit or miss, big body guy. He's really, in my opinion, underwhelmed from the position he's been at. And then you go on to, X, Y, and Z. But Freiermuth's a guy I love. 113, book it.
202, Elijah Moore. I think Wilson hurts him. Garrett Wilson. But he's a good player. 203, good. Eli Mitchell. Might have some long-term staying power. I think he's only going to be a starter there for maybe another year. But he's going to score while he's there. Last 2.
So I'm going to go, you got a fanboy pick for me. I'm going to go Davis Mills. Davis Mills, he has a unique opportunity. Super talented guy, 5-star recruit, number 1 quarterback coming out of college or high school that year. Number 1 quarterback. He showed me some things last year that I just loved. If he can continue to build on that and cement himself as that guy, I truthfully believe he will flourish. A lot of it has to do with him if he can continue to develop. So my last pick, I'm going to go with Rashad Bateman, just based off of pure upside. He's the only dude who can catch a ball that's not named Mark Andrews, and I like it. I shouldn't like it. I have a lot of reasons not to, but I do.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bateman later. All right, moving into overvalued, way too early overvalued. So whether it be, ADP is really fucking rough right now. I use the underdog one. That's even then, it's going to change drastically. So it's mostly just kind of based off the feel of the community. Go ahead. Your first quarterback, Jameis Winston.
So Jameis Winston, I love the dude as a person. I would watch. He's kind of like Marshawn Lynch. I would watch his fucking interviews all day long because you know what I mean. Marshawn Lynch is one of my favorite guys to watch his fucking interviews.
Jameis Winston's workouts are the best.
He's got some wild ass workouts, but here's my problem. And they did right by him. They got him another receiver. His receiving core is right. Run game's still good. We don't know what's going to happen with Kamara though, so that's a knock on him. My biggest issue is you took Sean Payton and you put in Dennis Allen, and we've seen Dennis Allen fall on his fucking face before. I don't think Dennis Allen in New Orleans is any better than the situation Jameis had in Tampa Bay. He still has elite receivers, just like he did in Tampa Bay. Subpar coaching, because Raheem Morris, while he is a great defensive coordinator, just like Dennis Allen was a good defensive coordinator, I just don't really see any difference. I hope for his development. He has been taking notes and doing what he needs to do. He's just a guy I see as overvalued. For me, Dynasty League, he's a third quarterback. In a Superflex league, he's almost not even rosterable to me in a redraft league.
Yeah, I see an avenue that Jameis. He's finished between quarterback 18 and 8 every full season. I see an avenue that maybe he sneaks into the back end of that QB1 territory. But say Kamara gets hit with like a 6-game suspension, more than we think. Michael Thomas continues to be Michael Thomas, and Jarvis Landry declines a little bit. Olave's a rookie, and you're kind of in like a circular place. And he's really, not playable. And you don't know after this contract if he's still gonna start anywhere.
Right.
I'm a Jameis believer. I love Jameis. When he was a free agent, when Brady left,
you were beating that fucking drum, right?
I wanted some Jameis action. I still would have wanted some Jameis action considering what happened, but didn't get it. But yeah, I see both sides of that, and I do think I've seen some people like really hype up Jameis, and as a real life quarterback, yeah, but he's a pocket passer in fantasy. Last year he was good on the turnovers. You don't know when that comes back though. Maybe the LASIK fixed it, maybe not. My overvalued quarterback is Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going off the board on underdog at quarterback 13. Trey Lance has played in 7 games over the last 2.5 years. And those 7 games were all against what was it? One of them's against FCS components, 2 of them are FCS opponents, 2 of them are starts, and the other 4 he just played a few snaps. I don't think Shanahan really likes him. And is not that he doesn't really like him. I don't think that Lance is there enough yet to really run the offense. And Shanahan, he's going to want that shit ran how it's drawn up. He does not want any off schedule.
Right.
And that's just that. And as long as Jimmy's on the roster, he has a guy who will do that and who knows how to do it, who's done it for 2 years now, 3 years now at a high level in terms of team success. I think that Shanahan's got a little pressure on him, and so does Lynch, over just the fact that, they make it to the playoffs, they made it to the Super Bowl, but they haven't gotten over the hump. They haven't figured out how to get over that hump. And I don't know. I just don't know how much. I don't know if Lance is going to live up to this hype. Shanahan, go ahead.
No, my personal opinion, I heard a rumor via fantasy Twitter, and I'm seeing it a lot now that Lynch is the one making the drafting decisions. I don't, you see guys like Trey Sermon. You see guys like Trey Lance. I don't think Shanahan wanted either of these people. So therefore, I think he probably wanted a little more Elijah Mitchell than he did Trey Sermon. I truthfully believe, and I saw this on an article, that he wanted Mac Jones. He didn't want Trey Lance. His offense isn't built for a running quarterback, and we've seen that's just a theory. But if Trey Lance could catch on in this offense, he could be, a guy in 3 or 4 years that we talk about top 3. If he could catch on in this offense, my concern is he can't. And I see a lot of people hyping up Trey Lance everywhere we go. At quarterback 13, that's a steep price to pay for me for a gamble, especially in a redraft league. I'll take the gamble in a dynasty league, but I've taken stupider gambles, so that's kind of why I say that. I don't like him where he's going at all.
Yeah, I'd rather have Carr, Lawrence, and Kirk Cousins, and a few other guys probably.
But Cousins,
Kirk Cousins is a high-end quarterback too, year in, year out, and he's in a way more friendly offense for his skill set, dude. He might be like quarterback 7. We might be talking about Kirk Cousins.
He might sneak up on us this year. I'll admit that. Yeah, he might.
And if they suck, crunch time Kirk Cousins, garbage time Kirk Cousins, crazy. He's the perfect garbage time guy.
God, I love garbage time Kirk Cousins. That motherfucker will throw 2 touchdowns down 4 and save you.
Both to Adam Thielen.
Yeah. I remember one game I had Adam Thielen, and motherfucker done nothing the whole game, and I fell asleep, right, because I hit a couple too many truly on a Sunday, and I fell asleep. That motherfucker, I woke up, he had 24 points, and I was like, shit, that was in the last fucking 10 minutes of that game because they were down big. Love it.
Your overrated running back. Well, early overrated. J.K. Dobbins.
So here's the thing. You look at the situation and you're like, okay, lack of competition. I wouldn't really say friendly offense, but lack of competition is enough to make me excited, right? It could take in my opinion, the lack of competition could take a running back 3 and make him a high-end running back 2 just because of the amount of work they're going to get. Here's what I don't like. J.K. Dobbins is going entirely too high based off of that fact alone. I talk about it all the time. For me, the draft, I let it fall. Whatever the fuck happens, happens. I try not to get too big of a boner about a certain player or another, but this is a guy, I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but this is a guy that just goes too high. Cam Akers is another.
He's at RB20 right now, but he's been rising. Like as he heals, he rises on underdog. So it's not perfect. It's too early. So I see him ranked at RB14, 15 in that range.
I can still
I think that's too high. I think 20 might be around the range, but anywhere over 18, way too high for him.
Yeah, and he's just, he had that one couple games where he averaged a really high yards per carry. Great. It's been a whole year. Lamar Jackson, here's the way I see it going. Lamar Jackson ain't been paid. And there's something to say about that. I think Lamar Jackson goes out there and, I've seen Lamar Jackson on easy reads, right? You got Mark Andrews over the middle. You got, someone flying high over the safety. He'll still fucking run it. And I think this is the year that he makes a statement. I do believe Lamar Jackson will be in the MVP conversation just because he's trying to get fucking paid. I think he's kind of in that Kyler Murray situation where he feels disrespected by the fact he hasn't been paid. This is not a year I would want to have a J.K. Dobbins on my roster. I just think he's going to try to do too much himself, prove his worth, and that is just purely speculation on my point. and I could be 100% wrong. But I could think of, if I'm drafting my second running back, I could think of a whole hell of a lot more people that I'd rather roster than that guy.
Another thing with Dobbins, he lacks talent competition. He is clearly the most talented back. They're going to have a committee, though. Gus Edwards is going to see some work.
Agreed.
Mike Davis is going to see some work. And think about it.
Davis is there? Shit.
Yeah. They had two running backs tear their ACL last year, Edwards and Dobbins. Do you really think he's going to get that much work? I mean, this is metaphorically speaking. I don't get I get the Dobbins hype because he's a really talented player, and sure, like if Harbaugh just finally said, cool, we're gonna give him 65% of the work, yeah, he's probably gonna be like a low RB1, high end RB2, but with where it's at now, I don't see it either. I do think Lamar's gonna have a hell of a season. I still don't think he's a great passer, and part of that's because of the weapons around him. It's not all his fault. It's the offense.
Dirty in this draft. Like, they trade his not so great wide receiver one. I'm not saying he's not great, but he wasn't great for that offense. They trade him and do what? Draft him a couple more fucking tight ends? That's what they did, dude. Like, day one. I know. My takeaway from day one, I was like, wow, the Packers and the Ravens hate their fucking quarterback.
I think the difference, though, was the Packers ended up addressing it. And I 100% believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be just fine. I'm sure he bitched about it.
Yeah.
But he'll be just fine.
Aaron Rodgers pulled up to that fucking office the next day, and he's like, look, I can retire, and I'll be fine. You better fucking do something about it. Lamar Jackson just posted something on Twitter and went to bed. That's the difference.
My running back, Cam Akers, you mentioned him. Yep. 11 out of 13 running backs who have suffered a torn Achilles were out of the league 2 years after the injury happened. There's only been 13.
11 out of 13, you said?
11 out of 13 did come back. Now, there's some context to be had. The two that hadn't, or the two that have not, they haven't hit the two. Well, one of them's hit the 2 year span. One of them will this year. Diontae Foreman had 1 year where he barely produced this year. And then Marlon Mack, who last year didn't get any workload, this year we'll see. We'll be able to gauge that. Now, I'm not, and this is, take this, subtweet it at James Robinson. It's the same deal. I'm not saying, an Akers or Robinson are going to be out of the league in 2 years, but what I'm saying is that they aren't a high-level running back anymore. Science has came a long way. Medicine has came a long way. I am sure that they are better at fixing that issue now than they were even 3 years ago with the speed in which that happens. Right. But I don't think they've came that far. In the NBA, it kind of has. Look at a guy like Kevin Durant tore it, came back, played 40 fucking minutes in the playoffs, and then this year was cooking people just like normal. But for the running back, and Kevin Durant's a freak. But for running backs, it's too important. Cutting, explosiveness, too important.
It's a less physical sport, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they're lighter people. They're lighter, which matters. It's a lighter load. And he's in a committee.
Play as much as Kevin Durant does at 6'10" or however big he is. So
210.
I'm probably 210. Yeah.
Akers is also in a committee with Henderson. Like, they're going to be there's going to be some type of work split. Fuck, last year Michelle was getting all of it. But, there's going to be some type of split there. So, yeah, I'd rather have ETNs, Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, Miles Sanders, throw in J.K. Dobbins, a few other guys.
Disrespect Josh Jacobs. On a side note, people disrespect Josh Jacobs. The guy's a 1,200-yard machine. And that's just, 100%. I'd rather have Josh Jacobs than Cam Akers. And last year, I saw his recovery, and I was really excited by that. But he went to the playoffs and really didn't produce.
It's the
And
Achilles, dude. That's how that works. I knew it.
it's
No one, the normies don't get it.
yeah. You for me, his playoff run was his audition to be a part of my fantasy team, and I didn't like what I saw.
He looked bad. He looked bad. He got a
And
lot of work and looked bad.
And yeah, he got a lot of work. And you really got to look at it. You really got to look at it from the fact that you got a sample right there of what he could do. Sure, we're 6 months later, maybe something's changed. I doubt it. I'm passing on Akers at his ADP 100%.
Wide receiver, your overvalued wide receiver. We talked about him. Talk to me again about Diontae Johnson.
So the guy drops passes, and the argument can be made. Maybe Big Ben, old, can't get it there. Sure, he can sure as fuck get it to Najee though. So that's kind of my issue with it. I think he's going to be a holdout, and he's going to want to get paid. Here's my problem with that. I don't see him here. There's a lot of signs to be told about how an organization feels about a player by what they do, right? And what the fuck did the Steelers do in the draft? They go and get George Pickens in the second round. First round talent, he fell to the second round, they snagged him. They also went and got Calvin Austin. So in my mind, they are basically planning on this guy never being there, right? If you look at the efficiency stats, it's not good. Guy drops passes. You look at his routes; they're not that clean. He was a guy, like I said before, that was purely based off of volume. He had good games. He produced fantasy points, but it was purely based on volume. I hate every bit of that. To be honest with you, I wouldn't even roster him unless he dropped to the 13th through 15th round. And I know someone's dumber than me and someone will jump on that way quicker. We got a Pittsburgh fan in our league. I know that motherfucker will go get him before I will, and I'm glad he will, right? I don't want any of it.
You just don't like him at all. I mean, I get it, but I don't. I was at one point the fucking leader of the Diontae train. I think Big Ben, you're right about the Big Ben deal. He fucking fed his ass targets. He was just over there. Ben snapped the ball. Okay, where's Diontae? Boom, 2 yards away.
Because he did that so many years with AB. Like, yeah. He doesn't know how to Big Ben didn't know how to make a read.
He went from Hines Ward to AB to fucking Diontae. Yeah. He loved his first read.
He loved his first read. And he didn't, and that was Big Ben's downfall. Big Ben will go down as one of the best just purely based off of longevity, my opinion. He wasn't ever, I think Phillip Rivers was a better quarterback. I think
when we played the Steelers, I was never worried about that motherfucker going off.
No.
I was worried about like AB maybe, the defense being good. I never was like, oh God, damn. I was never like, damn, I'm worried about Big Ben outdueling Brady. That was never the fucking no.
But he played like 17 or 18 years in the league, so his stats are
crazy. And he won some Super Bowls. He was good. He's like Eli Manning, kind of. He's like Eli Manning to me. In that same vein, like they won some Super Bowls. Better real life quarterback than fantasy.
He was an above average guy on a good team. And their defense, like, that's the thing Mike Tomlin does. Mike Tomlin can make a fucking defense. Mike Tomlin may or may not be able to make an offense. A lot of that'll be seen. I'm out on Diontae, though. I'm out.
I have him as like a wide receiver 3-ish. So, I mean, I'd draft him if value was right, probably in the 7th round, 8th round. But I don't think yet. I don't think he's as bad as you think he is, but I understand why you don't like him. I think after this year we run into some problems. I don't think he's going to go play on another team and be good. My overvalued wide receiver. This one makes me want to bang my head against the wall. Rashad Bateman at wide receiver 29 on Underdog.
Ooh.
Everyone and their mother loves to fucking sing the praises of Rashad Bateman this year. I get Hollywood's not there, but this is a Greg Roman offense. Greg Roman's offenses have ranked either 32nd or 31st in pass attempts in 7 out of 9 seasons between San Francisco and Baltimore. The 2 years they weren't bottom 2 in the league, they were 29th, and then last year they came in first in a year where none of their players were healthy. They lost a lot more games than they usually do, and they were in games differently. It was a whole different situation than what normally is going on. Now, I think there's some regression in that pass attempts from last year being number 1 in the league. The deal is, Lamar Jackson has only ever been able to support one high-level fantasy asset in the passing game, which is Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews has, multiple high tight end finishes. Last year, Hollywood Brown was wide receiver 21 in points per game. The year before that, he was wide receiver 43. The year before that, he was wide receiver 49. He was the wide receiver 1 in the offense all 3 years in fantasy points. I think, realistically, Bateman's in the 38 to 50 range, and that's okay. But it's lying to yourself to try to think that he's going to get wide receiver 3 work, even because it's not happening. He played, the big argument is, he was hurt last year. He didn't play much. In the last 4 games, he played over 80% of the snaps. He got 2, 5, 10, and 3 targets. And I think that's going to be how it looks a lot of the year next year.
Yeah, they are just not a very pass-happy team. And I think that's probably the dilemma in Lamar Jackson's contract talks is, I mean, here's my theory on Lamar Jackson. Uber talented guy, love him to death. He could be successful on any team. But riddle me this. If they were to fight on Malik Willis in that draft, would a whole lot change?
I think so.
Think?
Well, I think that you still have the issue of being able to play multiple in the run game.
Right.
I think Lamar is
way better.
That's where I think that there might be a little difference, but I don't. Where you're going is if Malik Willis is $5 million and Lamar Jackson is $45 million, is the extra 7 yards worth it?
Yeah, once you start, well, and
so I agree with the point.
Yeah, we all got to realize that everybody needs to employ the Rams cap guy because he understands the shit better than
the league does.
He's got it figured out to a level.
He wrote it.
I agree with you. I'm out on Bateman, really, especially in redraft. I don't see it. Every year there's these guys on fantasy Twitter that we hype to a level that gets it.
Brian Edwards. Brian Edwards.
I like Brian Edwards, not as much as
he's the next Randy Moss.
No,
people were saying that last year. Last year, John Gruden said he was playing good, and people on Twitter were like, he's the next Randy Moss.
Yeah, they like to do that. But anyway, my last guy tight end's pretty quick for us. TJ Hawkinson, I think he usually goes off the board around tight end 5. I don't see him producing anywhere in that metric. Here's my issue with Hawkinson. Love the player. Great player, top 10 tight end in my opinion. he's going to have a lot of competition for work this year. They had DJ Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, did really well towards the end of last year, and then you throw Jameson Williams. Oh my fucking god, Jameson Williams. Just a lot of reasons. The same reasons I loved him last year are the reasons I don't love him this year. Not that he's a bad player to have on your team. I just feel like he is going way too high.
Yeah, I agree. Hawkinson's always a guy that people hype up just like a tad too much. He's like the tight end 8 or 9, and he's like the tight end 5 for people. And it's just like your hair off.
No fancy guy.
Yeah. It's like you're close, but you're just not there. Mine is Kyle Pitts. Pitts is getting drafted at the tight end 3. I love Kyle Pitts as a player. Like, that guy is fucking goddamn good. However, Mariota is not fucking goddamn good. He's the opposite of that.
Don't hate on Mariota.
Mariota has the highest rank. He had Delaney Walker as a tight end 1 when Kyle Shanahan was there. Or not Kyle Shanahan, LaFleur. When LaFleur was there. After LaFleur left, Mariota was able to support a tight end 4, a tight end 6 and a tight end 6 finish. And Delaney Walker finished tight end 3 with LaFleur, and then he finished tight end 6 2 years after that. So the high end with Mariota is tight end 3. You are drafting Kyle Pitts at his volume-based ceiling. That's not taking into account Drake London. That's not taking into account Bryan Edwards, who he's not good, but he's not bad. I like the player as much as we just joked about him being the next Randy Moss. Bryan Edwards is okay.
I like Bryan Edwards over Russell Gage.
They surrounded Mariota with a bunch of dudes who can just win contested catch balls.
And he's not the guy to throw. I agree.
No. And they're only going to throw it probably 20 times a game. I like Pitts, and he might be a buy low. If you don't have him in our Dynasty Home League, I'd probably try to trade for him after this year. But you're not dumb. You know what you have. So, yeah, Pitts is a guy who, like, I'd rather have Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry, probably just those two over him. But Kittle are, your normal suspects, Andrews, Kelsey. But, yeah, like, tight end 6 is right for him, I feel like.
I think I'd rather roll the dice and see what value-wise, I'd rather roll the dice and see if Zach Ertz can continue to be productive. I'd take him in the 7th, 8th, 10th round over Kyle Pitts in maybe late 2nd, early 3rd.
I will let you know now. I'm going to have a lot of Mark Andrews in the 2nd.
Should. He is a uncontested tight end 1, and I don't think we need to have that conversation anymore. That's kind of where I'm at with.
I've been burned. Quarterback, I'm going Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson in redraft. And, we play in a keeper league. We don't even play in pure redraft. Well, it's not going to happen. However, if you're listening, that's a good strategy. Tight end quarterback stack in the 2nd and 3rd rounds in 1 QB. All right, guys, I think that's all. Have anything else to add?
No, that's it, buddy.
Perfect. We will see you guys again here in a couple of weeks. Thanks for listening.